Welcome, my name is Najar, better known as Wuzi, and this is the Creative Balance Show presented by Wuzi Apparel. A show where we sit with creatives, hustlers, entrepreneurs, and other brand builders to understand their stories and the balance needed for their success. Today, we are joined by none other than Gabriel Lopez, better known as GS Ultimatic. Gabriel is the host of a popular podcast called Have a Dope Day, where he sits down with cool people from different subcultures and breaks down what makes them unique. His journey with subcultures, however, started long before. Join us as we talk about how culture shifts, the history of Graf in Sacramento, and how to use your past as tools for the future. Enjoy the show. Guys, to the Creative Balance Show. It's your boy Wuzi. We're here in Old Soul, in Oak Park again. I'm here with somebody new, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, my name's Gabriel Lopez. I'm an artist, the host of a podcast called Have a Dope Day. I'm a father. I'm in recovery. I hope that's a good intro.
That's what's up. So I wanted to first ask you, because your name, can you pronounce it for me? It's
Gabriel Lopez?
The
Instagram name?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. GS Ultimatic. It's kind of a weird story how that came about, but it means nothing.
It means nothing?
I mean, well, it kind of does, but when I was painting in the streets a lot, I had a name that I wrote, and it was 4 letters. I added another letter later on, and then to abbreviate it, I just did 2 letters, which was GS. Okay. And the people that had knew me before, in the Graf game from before, like I changed it. They just knew who it was from the style and the letters. And so
nice.
When it came time to start Instagram, like years ago, before this account even, I wanted to have that street rep, but also project like hip hop as a culture. So like Illmatic is like my favorite album of all time, right? Nas's Illmatic. So my old account used to be called GS Illmatic. Well, with the rebirth and recovery and all that, certain things make up who I am. My job is one of those things, me as a craftsman. So the space that I work at has been very good to me. So I kind of wanted to pay homage to them and also take a little bit of their standard, Place is called the Ultimate Collision Center. They're a host of the podcast. They make it possible. They pay for it now.
Nice.
Justin and Kelly have been great to me. So I was like, you know what? GS Ultimatic. This is the new me. This is what I'm doing going forward. So
that's pretty dope. Yeah. When I saw the name, I kind of couldn't even
pronounce it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I'm thinking is it, the G silent?
Yeah.
Is it? So it's GS Ultimatic.
Yeah, it is. What's talking about branding too, when you can disrupt somebody's natural train of thought. If it's easy to read, it's kind of not that valuable. You see it, you wonder what the hell is this? What does this say? It sticks in the mind.
100%.
It's kind of one of those things too.
It's pretty neat. So, I want to go over, start with how you came up. Yeah. But my man has his own podcast, Have a Dope Day.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to see the more in-depth story, I want you to go on his podcast, Have a Dope Day. Check out both episodes. We're not going to go too deep into it here just to respect that, but I do want to create the foundation.
Yeah, I appreciate
so we know what we're building off of.
I appreciate it. So,
are you from Sacramento?
Yeah, I was born and raised here in Sacramento.
Born and raised Sacramento? What part?
Mom was a single mom for a while, so we moved around a lot, mainly South Sac, and then we settled in North Highlands. Mom met a wonderful man, my stepfather, and they married. Had a wild life with a bunch of kids. They bought a home in North Highlands, so remodeled it, and that's where we are now.
Okay.
So.
And how is being a Sacramentan? Is that what it is, Sacramentan?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
How do you feel about the change of the city?
I think it's great, man. I think it's great. There's a lot of the city has changed as I have. So when I was younger and I was into the grime and the dirty and just that whole vibe of the streets, Sac was really that for a lot of years.
Oh wow.
Go down into tunnelways because we're in California and we're one of the main waterways. Like we have all this infrastructure that's built in order to
Okay.
transport water from the Sierras and all that to, down to Mexico. So
Okay.
there's so many like major structures to support that are concrete. And in the summertime when it's 108 outside, those tunnels are 80 degrees, 70 degrees because they're underground. So we'd go paint there. That's not really a thing anymore. There was also less development, so there was more train spots to paint, so it was just a different city. But I also love the fact that I don't do that anymore and that the city is different too, so we've kind of grown together. It's been amazing.
I love that because I see a lot of, especially in your podcast, a lot of love for the city of Sacramento.
Definitely.
And I mean, a lot of people that I've met do have that love for Sacramento, but I know a lot of people I've met moved away and recently came back just because whatever reason they have for that.
The financial is one of them, right? Like, I remember when I was in high school, people were moving from Oakland and Richmond, Vallejo, because they were getting priced out back then. And I went to school with a lot of Bay Cats because of that, and it was tight. So, like, now it's even worse, right? Like, a lot of people move here that are in tech. That's why you see all this development popping up near the highways that are directly linked to San Francisco because of the tech. But it's been, I do have a lot of love for Sac, and I also, just a little gem as far as branding goes, like if you're going to want to learn about a place, you're going to want to learn from somebody who's seen it from the beginning to where it's at now. So I'm in a unique position to showcase the old, the current, and what's about to happen because I've been here. I've seen the timeline. So
so let's go through like a brief timeline then of like, you say you grew up in different parts of area, like childhood, like maybe say like, 5 to like 10 or something like that. Like what was little Gabriel around here running around doing?
Damn, I like your interview style, bro. That's tight. Yeah, I appreciate that. I grew up in a single mother home, my 2 sisters, and my mom did her fucking best, bro, to keep it all together. She raised us very well. My grandfather was basically my father for the first 12 years of my life, and I just remember like being like not so much sheltered, but just being like just watched, like they never put me in any dangerous situations, but I definitely seen things that was just different. My grandfather was retired, and he drove like an old Chevy truck around and would just pick up cardboard and recycle it. So like every weekend, that was the hustle. Wake up at his house, he'd wake me up, and Saturdays and Sundays we'd usually go to the flea markets around here. Then we'd go visit family. I would eat food at every stop. You know what I'm saying? Like Mexican families cook a lot of food, and there's always just the hospitality aspect is always there. So like we got to experience that, and man, I just drove around soaking up the city really because I didn't really read. I wasn't the kind of kid that was book smart. So like visually, I learned the city from the front seat of that truck.
Oh, wow.
And like I just fell in love with every little part of it, So the first, what was your question again? I'm sorry, I think I kind of got.
No, I was just more asking, like basically trying to get that context, of like you in that age.
Yeah. So he was just my grandfather was very independent, very much like a figure it out kind of guy. So I learned that from him, and he didn't let anything stop him. Sad to say he worked almost up to the day he died. It was only a few months prior. So it was like when you talk about Mexican people just being hard ass workers, like that shit is real. I really feel like that's in our DNA. It's been passed down since forever. And he was a prime example of that. My father now too, he's the same way, dude. Like nothing will intimidate this guy. Nothing will stop him. Like
nice.
So I get that spirit, just from those men and the men I'm currently around now too.
I remember listening to your podcast. You also said that in the passenger seat of your grandpa's truck, he taught you little things here and there, like teaching you Spanish and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like how, looking back on that, like how do you realize, like how impactful was that?
It was at the time, it was just curiosity, right? Like I would hear them use it. The generation before me would use it, and it would make me curious to it. But everything I was into, everything I was experiencing wasn't that. and then you kind of find out a little bit later that was on purpose. You know,
Okay.
they didn't want at one point in time, like Mexican, like all other immigrants, black folks too, you know, like everybody's treated like a second-class citizen because they're different. So I think they kind of did that on purpose. They left that education out. But
Interesting.
when I asked, he would always oblige. He would always talk to me in Spanish for little things, and I'd have to just, you know, what's weird is I learned to read body language before words, because I would be like, what is he doing? What is he saying? Like, he's got a rope in his hand, the gas stove is on, and he's burning the edge of it. And he's talking to me in Spanish, though. Like, what's the context here? I had to learn how to read between the lines.
Interesting.
I think that helps a lot now with situations.
You know, it's funny you brought that up because I have one of my close friends. He's his name's Chris, and same thing with his grandpa. It was a language barrier. He said him and his grandpa never spoke the same language.
Yeah.
So I had a discussion with my girlfriend yesterday. I was telling her, I was like, the crazy thing about like love or like you said, reading body language.
Yeah.
I said, somehow my friend was able to communicate with his grandpa.
Yeah.
And they've never ever spoke the same language.
Yeah.
And to me, like, that's so like dope to me. And like, I wanted to like, so like I bring that up to like say like, how do I position that? I guess I'm just highlighting that because I think it's dope that you were able to like get that, like, okay, what is he doing? Like, kind of examining everything. Like, okay, why is he burning the edge of the rope?
Yeah.
What would that do?
There's not to get too weird, but this is only one dimension we live in, right? This is only one part of our life. We walk around consuming and spending and consuming and spending.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother system that exists aside from that's been here since the beginning of the earth, you know, and that's human communication.
Oh, 100%.
That's us, you know, interacting with the world around us and just being in tune with that. We've definitely lost a lot of that due to just technology and a lot of stuff. But I say all that to say that at the end of the day, like, the human experience is like very primitive. It's very easy. You can see it. You can touch it. You can see in a person's face, like, this person means harm or this person means, you know, they don't mean harm. And like, reading between those lines is extremely important. And even now with my kids, I see it and I'm just like, yo, I'm right here right now in this second and this is tight. I'll never get this second again. So it's like a little bit more valuable, but like, yeah, basically, you don't really need words all the time is my point. You know, if you respect that person and you want to understand what's going on with them, you guys will figure it out.
Exactly. That's what's up. So after this, you know, you said about 12 years of your life, your grandpa was here, grandpa in your life, and it involved basically being your father figure. I think from what I remember, your mom got married. Mm-hmm. And then you guys, how long after she got married did you guys move to North Highlands?
So, in the hood, we move first before we get married. We move in together.
Yeah, nice. Hey, nothing wrong with that. That's how mom was.
No, but basically, she meets this person. She had already met him, you know, checked him out before she brought him home to her kids. And by the time I met him, it was already a sealed deal with her and him. So,
nice.
like, again, she did her job as she's supposed to. I remember it was pretty quick. You know, we meet him, and months later, we move in, and it was a weird dynamic to move in with kids, different ages from different backgrounds that you just don't know, but at the same time you're all in the same place in life. So
yeah, interesting.
It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty. I remember you saying, like, hearing your story about how you and your brothers were.
Yeah,
reminds me of like, so a little personal, like, I've technically known my dad my whole life, but I didn't really like interact with my siblings on my dad's side till I was about like 7.
Yeah.
So it was like going and finding out I had like siblings on my dad's side was just like mind boggling to me.
Definitely.
So like you telling the stories of like you going there and it's like instant, like, I don't want to say animosity, but it's kind of like that where it's like, what are you doing here?
Apprehension.
Yeah, like that's why I kind of like stepbrothers when they first meet up and they're like, I run this.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, like, how I wanted you to speak a little bit about that dynamic of, you know, going into that situation and having to navigate that, really.
So there's a lot that goes on at one time, right? I'm like 10 years old, 11 years old, I don't remember. And they're younger, but they've been exposed to different things than I have, because I was raised by my grandfather and my mother, and she did a good job of protecting us the best she could. He did a good job of teaching us things. My brothers were into different things due to the situation between their mother and father, right? So like their biological mother and their father. So they would go experience a different lifestyle during the weekends, come back and bring that with them, all that energy and knowledge with them. So like there was a really rough like year of getting to know who's who, you know, and like it was definitely an experience. It's similar to like walking into like a jail pod, and you're like, what the fuck's this guy's deal? What's his story? Who the fuck is he? Where does he fit in the system? You know, like
what's your bid?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's what it was like. It was a lot like that.
That's pretty neat. So you moved to North Highlands and you start going to school out there?
Yeah.
How was that experience?
That was different, bro. I went to a school called Etheli Baker out here in South Sac, and before that I went to a school across the street from the Dos Rios projects. So it was different school systems. Everything looked different. The schools I went to were older, probably, you know, built in the 30s and 40s. The schools up here were built in the late 90s, so you could see the difference in like the architecture and everything. Yeah. The neighborhood dynamic is completely different up here than it is down there. So like it was different. We were some of the only Mexican kids in school. There was a few black kids, but they were just like us, you know, they were out of place. So it was definitely different. You get to learn too that like there's way more available in a better school district than there is
100%.
You know, coming from like Dos Rios and shit.
That's pretty neat. So I want, because you said you were big into Graf.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of drew me to your podcast in the first place, was like a lot of the Graf artists and just the knowledge that you have of Graf.
Yeah.
When did that take place in your life?
So I remember, that's a dope question. I remember Highway 80, like again, passenger seat of that truck, just enjoying myself living as a little boy, you know, with grandpa just running around, not wearing a seatbelt, you know what I'm saying? Got dollars in my pocket, my hands are dirty, like got firecrackers in my other pocket, like just being an aggressive little boy.
Being a true kid,
Yeah, and like I remember seeing it on the freeways like periodically, and I'd always wonder what it was. There was in South Sac, there's a culture already that exists in Graf, right? And so like this is fresh out of the 90s into the early 2000s, and so like a lot of stuff was changing on the streets in graffiti, but there was still remnants of it here and there. I remember seeing like low-level rooftops, like single-story buildings, and they would have like tags over the roof of them. I always seen it, knew it was around, I just didn't understand the culture behind it. And so there was the first time I ever met anybody that wrote was a girl was babysitting me at this duplex we used to live at in South Sac. She had these two dudes that stopped by on skateboards, and they had a can of ballet slipper Krylon that was just, I remember hearing it, asking what it was, and just seeing them tag on the bottom of my skateboard. And I was like, let me see that can. And I run into the garage, and I'm just looking for something to tag on. Like, I finally got a spray can in my hand. Like, what am I gonna do? Yeah. I do a little dot on the washer and dryer in between the two of them, and I run back out, give it to them. And it was like a secret mission. It was super intense for me. That was the first time I ever like seen dudes that wrote. But let me backtrack a little bit. The first time I ever seen like a wild style graffiti piece up close was at Lawrence Park in South Sac. There was I'm pretty sure Rifa did it, or somebody from that era. It just said Lawrence Park in like funk letters. Everything was crispy, everything was clean, and I knew I was looking at something valuable. I didn't have the access to it. I would ask my uncle about it, and he knew about gang culture, so he would give me his version of it. You know, I had cousins that were just in the street life, and they would give me their version of it when I would ask about it, but I never actually understood that it came as one of the four elements of original, you know, hip hop culture, and that it just was, it had this whole backstory that starts way before me and in a way different place. And so that's always fascinated me. So when I finally got access to that, it just became like a drug to me, you know, like it was just took over. It wasn't just Graf as a visual, it was hip hop as a culture, you know. Graf as a visual breaking as a body, art form, and then the emceeing as just wordplay, the music with scratching and DJs, like it really showed me like something different. It went hand in hand with music. I was a scared little boy when I would leave my grandfather, and so I would walk to, there used to be a Kmart around the corner from his house, and my cousins and everybody else would always warn me, don't go walking anywhere by yourself because you'll get stolen. So in my head, there was like dudes in black vans driving around waiting to steal kids.
Waiting to steal kids.
Yeah, so I was terrified, like being like 7 years old, bro, like walking to Kmart. My grandparents allowed me to do that. My mother was doing her thing at home. So like, I remember walking being terrified for multiple, like the first times. And then one Christmas goes by, I get a Walkman with the tape. I get a tape with this fat Puerto Rican dude on it. And I'm like, yo, what is this even? I go into my room after Christmas and like open it up. I put it in, and it's Big Pun's Capital Punishment. And I just hear the trains in the background, the whole vibe of the city, and I hear the lingo, bam, bam, Punisher taking them out, bam, bam. And I'm just like, these are kids, but they're aggressive. Like, I went deeper into it, bro.
Oh, wow.
So when I would walk to the store and I had that fear of like, people are going to steal me or whatever, that tape would really make me feel like a badass.
Okay.
I'd be like, yo, fuck that. I'm like Big Pun. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would take on that. I would take on hip hop. I would let it come through me. You know what I'm saying? And so like that went hand in hand with graffiti. Graffiti's not necessarily that anymore, but that's how I got into it. That's how I learned about it. And so, yeah, that was a few years of things and events marinating and just kind of me discovering it,
Okay.
That was the beginning of a lot of things.
Okay. So you said it's not like that anymore. I want you to kind of go into that. Like, when you say anymore, how has Graf changed majorly?
Yeah. So let's go back to where Graf started, right? In the late 70s, well, let's go back even further. Spray cans as a technology comes out after World War II. The first patents come out for a aerosol style, spray.
Okay.
Just hardware paint, not really anything significant. Fast forward 20 years later, you got kids on the East Coast living in basically third world conditions, learning to express themselves, just living life as poor black and brown and white kids, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's being seen, nobody's being noticed. They're all getting washed over, passed over. If you've ever grown up on welfare, you know that you're in a system. You are not a person, you are a number in a system.
Yeah.
You go to school, same thing. So these people at, in this point in their life, they want to be heard, they want to be seen. So they start experimenting with the things that they had readily available, and that was stealing spray cans.
Okay.
So some of the first writers were doing very ugly, well, I wouldn't call it ugly, just very experimental things in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And then you go into the 80s where it's developed into like a tagging culture, chicken scratch on walls and trains and things. And then from there it goes into a full-blown just movement, bro. And it leaks out from the East Coast into the neighboring cities, and it just becomes this subculture, right, that kids built. And so from there there's a particular person who's very important to the culture and the timeline. I think it's Martha Cooper. She's a photographer for like one of the New York publications, and she has a job as like filler photography, where she just takes pictures of whatever in order to put in the magazine or the paper,
like
when
stock
it's
photos.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like she had a walkie-talkie in her car exploring New York as this photographer. And so one of the things she would run into during her downtime was just Graf. She would see it, wonder about it, not know what it was. One day, I think she sees somebody painting a store. She already had an appreciation for it. She gets in contact with him. He's one of the little homies in the neighborhood, and he connects her with Dondi, who's a graffiti king at the time. And she's allowed access to this movement, right? And so from there, she turns around and puts years into, first off, respecting the culture, learning these people, learning who they are, what they do, why they do it, what it takes to do it. She starts to understand that there's levels to this. She just explores it in depth. That leads to her publishing a book called Subway Art. Pretty sure it's called, or Spray Can Art. I don't remember. I think it's Subway Art.
Okay.
But she publishes that book, and it's a small publication, but it is a nationally recognized company that publishes it. So it goes out into the world. They didn't sell a bunch, but a lot got stolen.
Oh, wow.
That's the culture. Yeah, we still think. So fools are racking the book all over the country, getting exposed to this and understanding that this is a subculture. Well, after that, or on the piggyback of that, a documentary comes out called Star Wars, and that's on PBS, Public Broadcasting Service. So that's played all throughout the world. And all the other kids who are poor like that, in that situation, who don't have cable TV, but do have PBS, they're all watching and experience it at the same time.
Interesting.
And so that shit blows up into all these tiny little incendiary situations all over the world. And that's the beginning of graffiti leaking out of the East Coast into the world, right? And so from there, it blows up, dude. And by the early 90s, we have a culture here in Sacramento that has been generations in the works, right? This dude named Rifa comes from Oakland, teaches a bunch of people his letter structure style, how to build letters, and that became the beginning of the Sacramento style. Oh, wow. From there, you have other people that push it, like the Good Times crews, Stu and Jessel, and other people after them, like Emer and Minus, who are still around today. You just have a lot of generations of this culture just being pushed. You know, people are living it, experiencing it. It's who they are. There are so many other facets of it too that help it to be what it is. Like, I did the episode with Get a Clue with Scott Gilbert, and he was unintentionally, you know, he just wanted to have a dope spot. He starts basically like the home base for hip hop.
Oh, wow.
You know, and it just turns into a store, and that's why he's around 30 years later, because he respects the culture. He is the culture. He's in the culture, you know, and like,
okay,
we're at a point in graffiti / hip hop now to where it's like, just like rap used to be rap, and then it became pop. You know, like that's what Graf did too. First it was just Graf, but the kids watching Style Wars were into Led Zeppelin and shit too, all the white boys.
Oh, wow.
You know, and so they're doing their version of it. Fast forward to basically the early 2000s, you get this, like, hip hop gets kind of commercialized and makes it not cool anymore.
That's a good word.
It's not that cool anymore.
Yeah.
Graffiti's for the streets, bro. It's not about being cool.
Exactly.
It's about being for the fucking streets.
Yeah.
So kind of, you know, steers away from that style of rap and hip hop, and what we know now is quote unquote hip hop, like the radio.
Yeah.
You know, that has nothing to do with graffiti. So graffiti survives on through the people in the culture who come from other cultures. So now it's its own animal, bro. I just did an interview with one of the homies, Roar, Lord's crew, and he was like straight punk rock, bro. I went to go see him. He had a jean jacket on.
Okay.
Excuse me, with the sleeves cut off, had all these like studs in it, like these sharp studs. And I look at him and he's got a mullet, you know, and he's all tatted up, and I'm like, this is fucking a dope ass dude right here.
Yeah.
Like, he looks like his graffiti, and it's not from hip hop. Does he have an appreciation? Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's a punk rock dude, and it's like, yo, this shit outgrew the original blueprint, and now it's its own thing.
Exactly.
And that's what makes it. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's just life, right? Things change. I'm sorry, that was a long ass answer.
No, I mean, I like the depth of knowledge for sure, because you know, I'm pretty sure a lot of people who don't know about the, you know, a lot, and that I'm gonna talk about that later, but like a lot of people know about graffiti and know what it is and can like name it, but they might not know who the artist is, or might not even know how far back it goes. You know, some people think they're the first person to, like, look what I did. Like, it's like, bro, there's way back, like I said, there's train cars that have old art on it that probably before you're born.
Even go back further, right? Like the first way of communication from a previous civilization is writing on walls.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's in our DNA.
Yeah.
Straight up. Like, now that you have like structured society, I get it. You don't own the walls, don't write on them. But fuck that.
Pretty much. I think a lot of us can relate to different parts of Gabriel's story. Endlessly curious kid, less than glamorous beginnings, finding a way to cope with everything. This, along with other circumstances, was the perfect recipe for him joining a bubbling movement known as hip-hop. He was right at home. Now, looking back on it, he understands that there may have been a better way of coping, but at the time, being a brown kid in a new school, new home, handling some new emotions, hip-hop was the only thing that made him feel heard, and more importantly, feel fearless. This deep dive into the culture molded him at a critical time. Gabriel's love for hip-hop and Graf leads him down a winding path, but to hear more of that story, check that out on his podcast, Have a Dope Day, link in the description. From here, we can continue to learn how his behavior was received by his family and how he transformed that passion into what we see today. I wanted to shift into, because you're in North Highlands, kind of getting into Graf. I remember you saying like your grandpa passed away and then you fully got into Graf.
Yeah.
And you kind of started to rebel a little bit.
Yeah.
Through, like I said, I want to respect his podcast. So if you want to see the full story, go check it out. It's actually really dope. I listened to it like twice. I swear to God.
I appreciate it.
but I wanted to talk about how, like, that transition when you were like basically realized like, okay, Graf is not making me money, but I love to do it. You said your stepdad kind of saw that you didn't want to go to school, and he forced you to work. Like, talk about going into the labor force pretty much earlier than most people.
So like, first off, at like 12, 13, you don't have a solid emotional intelligence foundation, right?
Yeah.
So like major shifts in your life can like make or break that very important time frame. And so I can see that now, right? But at the time, I was just in it. I was just reacting to life. Basically, Grandpa passes, it all goes downhill in my head, and like Graf was my little refuge. But that wasn't the only thing. Like, an artist should reflect their art 100%. So as I'm going deeper into Graf, I'm getting further away from the things that a little boy is supposed to be doing, trying to be a good person, trying to learn, you know what I'm saying? Like, all these things, I was going deeper into this other direction. And so like, that wasn't an overnight thing. That lasted in all through, elementary, junior high, even into high school. Basically, bro, I'm living for graffiti at this point. Get kicked out of multiple high schools. I'm learning just about the streets and sneaking out of my house and just, really diving into it. So
yeah,
it wasn't like my dad woke up one day and was just like, "Oh, you're fucking up, you need to go to work." Like, I had given him a solid track record of fucking up. So I'm 17. I'm living at home. I'm not doing shit with my life. They fully know I'm out fucking around. They fully know I am not gonna graduate high school. I'm ditching like 70% of the year at my continuation school because I learned how to ditch school and go, work on the graffiti craft during the day. So like, I remember one day he's like, "You're going to start going to work and you're going to start working with me." And I was like, "No, I'll go back to school." And he's like, "No, you won't. You won't go back to school. Like, you're already too far." Him and my mom sit me down and they're just like, "You can make this much money doing this and that. We'll put you in a trade. At least you'll have a job." And I'm just like, fuck that. So it was actually, it was good and bad all at the same time, right? It's a new experience. So having my own money for the first time was dope. 90% of it went to just my lifestyle, graffiti and hip hop.
There's definitely something about having money for the first time, especially when you have no bills. It's like, I can do anything I want.
I remember getting my first check and it being like $700. And I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because I'm working with my dad, right? We're going in at 5 a.m., leaving at 8 p.m. For like 90 days straight. That's my clock, During the weekends, he's still going in, but I'm not. Or sometimes I do because he needs me to. But like, I learn about what this trade actually is like the first year, and it's rough as shit, right? This is not for like soft dudes. So I'm in the automotive industry. I'm a painter now, but I started out as a detailer in a body shop, and like, we go through it, me and him. Those first 10 years of like being out of the house, I really just ran my body rugged, bro. I'd work hard as hell all week. As soon as fucking Friday came and I got my check, I was in the streets, climbing billboards, running from the police, hiding in dumpsters and shit, like just being wild. So it was definitely crazy. And like, even now in the workforce, it's like, well, I'm so grateful that that happened to me. I wouldn't be where I am today if that didn't happen like that. So I'm glad it happened. I'm grateful for it. I'm totally glad that they cared enough about me to be like, try this, figure this out. You know, instead of just being like, you're 18, go do what you do. So shout out to mom and dad.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's dope too, because like, I mean, this me kind of just from going off what our prior conversation too.
Yeah.
It's dope to like hear like back then it was like you said, work your ass off till Friday.
Yeah.
Friday, and then it's like time to take this money and like do what I love to do with it. And it's kind of cool, like talking to you recently, it's like it's kind of that same energy still, like
Yeah, it is.
you work till Friday and it's like you have your podcasts and events and things like that. So it's cool to see like how that routine is like continued and evolved even today.
Definitely. And it's like I definitely learned, quote unquote, how man is supposed to work, you know, from the men before me. I have great examples now of men that are entrepreneurs who own their own companies, do their own things, and it's like there's a version of that that's healthy. I'm very fortunate, bro, to have seen both these lifestyles, to have lived them, and to just be in them still, but in a healthy way, in a refined way. You know what I'm saying? So it's dope.
So before I'm gonna go into how you got to the podcast side of it.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, I wanted to talk about something that I thought was pretty cool, because fun fact, I mean, I'm not the flyest today, but like I'm a big fashion fan. Like I love fashion.
Yeah.
And obviously, like you said, you know, fashion has its inspirations from music as well and things like that. It was cool, like learning about Graf and then like hearing you talk about Graf and just seeing how there's a lot of similarities between fashion and graffiti, especially the term toy.
Oh, is that a fashion term too?
So it's not a fashion term, but the idea behind like you said toy, the way you explained it was toys like somebody just don't know anything.
Yeah.
And like you can't get respect from other writers until you like know something.
Yeah. You gotta put some time in.
And it's like, and it's not hard to find the information. I mean, it's not easy to find the information at all. So in fashion, it's kind of the same way. Like we know we see it everywhere. It's like in plain sight. But like if you don't have that mind's eye, it's like you don't know what that is. And if you can go see that information, people will recognize you. And I think it's cool that like, you know, there's like a lot of like example when you talk about like racking, you know, and boosting, like that. There's like a heavy like in
culture
fashion
behind that,
because like some of the flyest people, were either gangsters, so they made money that way, or they literally had to steal their clothes or find some way to finesse clothes.
Just a quick little side tour. I have a friend that's 100% homeless, strung out. Flyest person I know every time I see him. No lie. Always still in the dopest shoes. Always got on like neon colors, but it's always polo. It's all, and I'm like, bro, what the fuck is going on with your life right now? Like that didn't leave you, fam. Like you got rid of everything else, but you kept that. He pulled up on me the other day, and I'm like, you got on new Adidas. Like these are white. You live. You know, what are you
These
doing?
are clean.
Yeah. Like what are you doing? He's just. There's a lot of reading in between the lines when it comes to subcultures, right? That's what makes them special too. It's like, oh, this dude knows what's up, right? He knows where to find it. She knows where to find it. The reading in between the lines is what makes it exclusive. If you can't, if there's a direct access to it, everybody would have it. It wouldn't be that tight. You know, it wouldn't be that valuable. And so like having access to something is extremely important. It's also one of the hardest things to do if you're like, not willing to just be uncomfortable. You're not willing to go explore, make some mistakes, you know, so.
Well, see, and that's another similarity too, because like, I'm pretty sure, like you said, I remember you joked about it, like when you first started tagging, it was like you thought it was the best thing, you know, looking back and like, yeah, man, what was I doing?
No, even like I even still think of pieces like that I have. I'm just like, that was not a good day. Like,
well, it's kind of like that in fashion. You know, I think if you go, there's like I can't remember, but I remember there was like a section on some kind of interview where somebody asked people to react to their old outfits, and like seeing that, and it's like, oh my god, what was I thinking? Like I thought this was the flyest thing ever. It's like, so it's like cool to have to see like that exploration too. So I just wanted to highlight that point because I think it's like I said, even like borrowing gear, like you know, if you're in fashion, like especially if you're deep in it, it's like you understand you can't buy everything. You can't steal everything. But like, if your friend got something, hey, let me get that for the outfit tonight.
I have a homie named Ruko who was for a long time he was hustling, doing his thing, right, getting it out the street, and like when I met him, he didn't have an extensive shoe collection. I did though, because I had already had a job for years and I was older. So like, fast forward 10 years later, he's got every SB that comes out that's like a dope ass drop. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a fly ass dude still. Always got his hair cut. He's all tatted up. Like, he's just, when you think of the personality behind the graffiti, like I said, it should match. So like, when you see him, it makes sense. And I've always loved that about subcultures in general. When you see these people, they look like they've spent time building this to themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's valuable to see that and be like, yo, fam, like, you curated this whole outfit, which is basically your lifestyle. You know, and that's how you curate other things too. I always love that about street culture, and that leads directly into the podcast too.
So that'll be a perfect segue then. Podcast.
Yeah.
A graffiti podcast. At least it started that way, and it's evolving. I see like the different guests now, because I just feel like you love to learn about different cultures, especially people who are like real about it. So how does, like, you know, where does that, you know, how'd you find out about podcasting? How'd you, you know, where did the ideation start? Yeah.
So it's not my idea at all. Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
Is a producer, the owner of We Are Sacramento, Gabriel Lopez. Like, there was, check this out. So Graf leads into a very different lifestyle than what I leave today. You know, I get hooked on a substance, run that shit up. I'm in the streets doing it. Just, you know, opioids was my thing for a minute. And so I get clean. I go through a process called like a maintenance program. Okay. And it's methadone, right? So I go through methadone, blah, blah, blah. That shit sucked. I get out of that just before the pandemic cracks off. And I'm like learning about, what am I going to do now that I don't have therapy anymore? Now that I don't have counseling anymore? Like,
interesting.
What am I going to do to keep myself straight? I always loved art. I always loved, not art, but Graf. I always loved everything about it. I just couldn't do it anymore because in order to exist in that space, in the streets, you have to live, eat, breathe that. And you have to be a fucking dog, bro. You got to be ready to, you know, whatever comes next, you just got to be ready for it. That was okay before kids. That was okay before personal growth. Like, now as an adult with a family, trying to make money and be a decent human being, like, I had to figure some things out. Yeah. So the pandemic cracks off. I spend months in the body shop after hours on weekends, just experimenting with canvases and art. Okay. You know, and like still trying to do Graf on canvas. And like, I was just learning a new skill, a new thing. I'm a craftsman at heart, so diving into this new process was extremely valuable. So a friend of mine, Overrated, has a show at a space called Tower Brewery, and he's like, I had owed him some money from a pill deal from back in the day, right? I burned him. And so I call him up, I'm clean, I give him his money. He's hella cool about it. Totally should have told me to fuck off and just keep going, but Overrated is a good person. So anyways, he invites me to this show a little bit later, because I tell him like, yo, I've been experimenting with canvases. He's like, oh, well, I'm doing this art thing too. He had caught like some multiple felony cases and all this and that. Okay. So he was trying to turn it around too. And I was like, well, nah, bro, I'm from the streets. I don't do art shows. And he's just like, all right, that's cool. But he's also the same way. Like, I know his resume. This is a legit writer. Yeah. So like, if he did it, let me just go try it out. I wound up getting obsessed with the idea of what this could be, right? Yeah. And I remember even before that, just kind of in recovery, just thinking like, I can't go back to being the same person. Yeah. Like, that's not the goal here. Yeah. You know, the goal is going to be a different person. And so like, that was the beginning of a lot of personal growth. Fast forward months later, one of the homies that used to be into Graf, who's still a part of the hip hop culture, my homie Marcos, had a podcast called The Word Is Bond. Okay. And he was like, yo, can you get me this, and that person to be on the podcast? I was like, yeah, let me try to quarterback that, set it up. They weren't down. So
they weren't down.
Yeah. I was just like, nah, bro, he's not. And he just hit me up weeks later, like, yo, you want to come on and talk shit? And I was like, I don't have anything to say. And he's like, bro, just talk about graffiti. And I'm like, are you sure? Like,
are you sure we can do that?
Are you sure you want to do that? So I show up to his studio space, which is right here down the street, 3400 Broadway at the Loft. And he was just like, this is my recording equipment. These are my homies. Mario Lopez is sitting off to the side doing his thing. Like, I walk in, I'm extremely nervous. I have this piece of art that I just put together over the last few months. I have no idea if I'm doing art right or not.
Yeah.
You know, like, I show up and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just be me. Fuck it. Let's see what happens. That episode comes out. My Instagram is just starting, so like it really helped boost some of that stuff. And like the response tripped me out of how many people remembered who I was from the streets here, because the scene is small and because the city was not fully developed as big as it is now. So there was a core culture of people that remembered me, and that was very encouraging. So like I turn around and like just dive deep back into art during the pandemic, right? Like I just get it. I keep getting it. I keep learning, keep doing this, keep researching, keep going to shows. Like just I dive into it. And there comes a point to where other art podcasts are popping up, because now I'm interested in what art is also.
Okay.
Can't do Graf in the streets anymore.
Yeah.
So like me being just from that street culture, I was like, well shit, I'm a wiggle my way into something. Let me see what's, you know what I'm saying?
See what's going on.
Yeah, let me see what I get, what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
So I just started looking around and like, there's an art scene here. Okay. I've accessed the graffiti scene. I know how to navigate and politic my way through that. I've been doing it in the city for years. Like, I wonder if those skills will translate. Turns out they do. Long story short, or long story longer, whatever. My bad. Yeah. I get invited to another podcast, sit down with him. I do the episode and like I have hella personal growth, but I'm not understanding myself as a brand. I don't know how to not say certain things.
Interesting.
Right? So I just come out super honest, super like, I'm a drug addict, I did this and that. And it was very beneficial for me to just be authentically honest, but at the same time, there's no direction there. So after that, the host leaves. After that episode, the host leaves. And the producer was like, yo, you should start a graffiti podcast. And automatically in my head, I'm just like, nah, we're for the streets out here. Won't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then he's just like, think about it, you know? And then he just goes, look, this might hurt your feelings, but you're letting your addiction define you. And I was just like, in my head, you know, Mario, it's all good. Like I said now, because me and Mario have a different relationship. But in my head, I'm like, who the fuck's this guy think he is? Like,
yeah.
But at the same time, right after that statement is made, in my head, I'm like, whoever this guy thinks he is, he's right. Like, fuck. And I drive home just 2 inches tall in my own mind.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, well, if I'm only 2 inches now, I can grow. What am I going to grow as?
Yeah.
I remember that conversation with myself about coming back as a different person, right? And I'm just like, you know what? I just start thinking, what if? I don't say anything, but just what if? And so the idea of a podcast marinates in my mind for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That episode was supposed to come out. It didn't. And me being from the streets, I think like, yo, this dude's trying to play me. This dude's disrespecting me. Like, you know, fuck it. Fuck these fools. Like, I'm going to show them how this is done, even though I have no idea how to do this. I have absolutely no idea how to do this.
He's like, listen, I don't know what to do, but I can do it better than what he's doing for sure.
That was the other thing too, is like you get, the art of conversation has always been something that I've been aware of.
Okay.
So you can see how people have conversations and how there's, you know, that's definitely a skill that needs to be honed and directed. But at the time, I just knew I had access to something nobody else did. So I called the producer the next week and I'm like, yo, what's up with this whole podcast thing you're talking about? And he's like, well, what can you afford? And I tell him my numbers and he's like, man, traditionally this is a way bigger thing than that. He's like, but look, I'm interested in you. I want to know what would happen if we did this, you know? And I'm just like, all right, here's what I could commit to. Like straight up, I give you my word for the next 6 months, I could do this number. I have no other plan, bro, aside from this is what it would cost to do it. I know he knows how to do the other half of it. So compartmentalizing what's what, I'm like,
well, there's also passion there.
Yeah, there's hella passion too. And I'm like, here's the thing. It can't be just a graffiti podcast because the streets won't, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
The street way doesn't allow that. The street state of mind. So what about subcultures? And he goes, ooh. And I'm like, okay, he's digging this. I'm like, what about, my whole life I've grown up here, bro. I know about lowrider subculture. I know about fashion subculture. Like I've seen it. I've been a part of it. What about just highlighting subculture? And he's like, I know what to call it. And I'm like, what? He goes, have a dope day. The piece you just made that you showed in your art show, have a dope day. And I was like, fuck it. I don't know if that's good or bad. Let's just go.
Yeah.
So I show up. I think Mario's very, very good about reading in between the lines. He's very good about tracking trajectory and guiding it. Fucking guy.
Yeah.
He's good, right? Anyways, I have a lot of love and respect for him. But anyways, I think he saw a lot that I didn't see.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, just go, start. He would direct me on things. I'm learning about art scene here at the same time, and so I'm just like seeing all the shows, seeing all the people in there, but I'm just being honest about it too. If I don't like something, I just won't fuck with it, regardless of the Instagram numbers, regardless of the hype behind it.
Exactly.
I just, in order to live in sobriety, I have to be honest with myself.
Yeah.
And that's with everything. That translates into everything.
Okay.
So that's like my truth now, bro. Is like, you know what I'm saying? Just be authentic. Doesn't have to be this fabricated story. Just, it is what it is already. The work's done.
Okay.
So the first episode, I'm just like, how does this work? And he's like, you're going to record a trailer with me. Then you figure out how you're going to do this. You got to learn about podcasting. You could be an interviewer. You can just talk about Graf. Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, nah, not me just talking about it. I was like, in my head, I'm like, let me try to bust this move real quick. See if I can get a big fish.
Yeah.
There's somebody that I'm just like gaga over. Like, so there's a dude named Cheyenne Randall, an artist that lives here in Sacramento now. He was putting up all these dope-ass wheat pasting pictures. And I had painted a wall with my boy Overrated that was next to one of his pieces. And I couldn't figure out if this was digital, if it was a painting. I couldn't figure it out. But it's 8 feet high. It's 7 feet long. Like, it's a big-ass piece of Frida Kahlo. And, like, she's all tatted up, though, and I'm like, yo, what's this dude's deal? What's this dude's story? And, like, I see another piece of, Elvis and, no, not Elvis, my bad, Lucy and Ricky Ricardo.
Okay.
I think, like, I just see other work from him, and I start looking into him, and, like, I'd already been a fan, like, a year before I did the podcast, and I'm like, I see him in person at a show that another artist is having.
Yeah.
They had a collaboration piece, and I'm like, okay, this is weird, because in my head, he's this dope-ass artist, which he still is, but in person, he's just a guy. And he's accessible.
Okay.
Like, let me just hit him up and see what happens.
Okay.
So I hit him up, and I'm like, look, I have no idea how this works. I have no idea how to do an interview, but, like, I want to start a podcast. Here's my vision, my short-term vision that I have now. Like, I'd really love for you to be the first person to help me kick this off. I can pay you if I need to or whatever. And he's just like, no need to pay me. I've seen you like liking my stuff. Like, I appreciate you being a fan. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll do your podcast. And I'm like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't tell Mario nothing because I don't know Mario at the time, really. I show up and I'm like, this is the person who's coming. And he goes, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, this person has 250,000 followers on Instagram and they're verified. And I'm like, so what? His art is tight. Like, and he's a great person. Like, I can tell by the information I found on him.
Yeah.
There's something here. There's a human being here I want to learn about.
Nice.
I do that recording with him. Super nervous. I had a list of questions. Quickly found out a list of questions is not my style.
Yeah.
I'm cursing every other word. I'm still fresh off the street. And that episode comes out. And because of the guests, it gets 800 streams right out of the gate. No paid promotion, no nothing. It's just Mario's professionalism with the product and my authenticity with the story, and Cheyenne putting in all those years of work, building the network he has, and just building a body of work and just grinding. The other thing was, I thought to myself, holy shit, this makes the two of us look good. Like, I can tell people the greatest things about him that they wouldn't know anywhere else. And that's wild, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So as I'm learning about podcasting and conversations, I'm also just learning about different types of art.
Yeah.
So these two things have gone and grown hand in hand with me. As I learn about art and I discover a new keyword, the Renaissance period, postmodernism, all this and that, I start to just look for that in my local area, in my city. And so I'm like,
nice.
As I learn about it in my life, I try to catalyze that learning with a person.
Okay.
You know, or somebody from a different scene that
Okay.
maybe will point me in a different direction. And what's happened is I've gone so far down the artist rabbit hole that like I'm just fully addicted to art now. When
That's
I say
what's
art,
up.
I mean the podcast, the shows, making art, the art of conversation, the business of it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? People will give me money to paint what I want.
That's crazy.
That's ridiculous.
yeah.
That,
That concept is foreign.
That feels like stealing. Like
Yeah.
it literally does. And it's crazy. Like I've also been able to show my thanks for people that have helped me along the way. Going back to my boss, Justin and Kelly, the owners of the Ultimate Collision Center. They were able to come out, celebrate the beer release of the We Are Sacramento beer because, you know, Justin was on the can.
That's what's up.
OPB had us out, had a big party. Mario did a great job with the pictures, and he, you know, we're on the label for that time. Him and I are
Nice.
both on the beer can. And that was great, dude. We got to have a great time. It was something different. Like, they appreciated, I appreciated everything for so long.
That's so
And
neat.
then fast forward 6 months, I asked for a sponsorship for the podcast. They cut me a check that day.
Okay.
Like, I write this commercial out like 6 times. Googled like all the words in it because again, I don't have any great schooling.
Yeah.
I stumble bum my way through the initial conversation with them. This is the commercial I have for you, and it's like I just stumbled it. I totally fumbled it, but they knew what you know. They saw
Yeah.
the potential. They had been out to the art shows. They see what's going on.
Exactly.
Kelly cut me a check that day, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is happening now!"
Yeah.
Like a year of the podcast is paid for. Like this is only a year old. Like
yeah, exactly.
this is wild. But I say all that to just say that like when you approach things honestly, and you're not on no weird shit.
Yeah,
and trying to
exactly.
be like, if you're not focused on trying to get yours,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like good things will come to you. Return that energy back into the universe or karma, whatever you want to call it, and it'll continue, bro. It's like this cycle of positivity that I'm like in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's radiating through everything. So yeah, that's how the podcast started. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that was a perfect way of fleshing it out too, because yeah, that's pretty much fleshed it all out 100%. I do want to ask you, you know, because you did talk about what drove you to do it. You know, it was initially, you know, kind of like you felt burned,
Yeah.
and you're like, I gotta show them that I can do this.
Yeah.
And then you kind of grew into that love. So I want to ask you, like, what's some of the highlights and like some of the frustrations of like having a podcast? Because some people don't know.
Yeah.
Some people see a podcast, they think like, oh, you just get the person on there and then
Yeah.
you guys chop it up. But there's a lot more that goes into a podcast, and I'm pretty sure you know that more than anybody.
Yeah. So the most valuable thing the podcast has taught me, right, is how to use ego as a tool.
Who?
How to use ego as a tool.
Interesting.
Me saying like, oh, this dude played me, that's my ego. Right? Like
Yeah.
that's my ego. Me calling and being like, let's do it, that's my ego.
Okay.
Me being humbled by somebody checking it and going, you're letting addiction lead you. You know, you're letting these things lead you. It was hurtful for a split second, but ego was also like, wait a minute, dummy. If you're letting that lead you, you can let whatever lead you.
Interesting.
And so like
Sometimes
as I
it's
learn
moments.
about these people and I see the guests on the podcast, like, yo, this person is humble, but they got this dope ass skill. They're supposed to be like movie star style in my mind.
Okay.
All these artists on the podcast have taught me to check my own ego because they're all emotionally mature from different places in life. Not everybody grows up like I did.
Yeah, exactly.
I just learned from these people, and the admiration and respect that I have from them, I try to take on because it's successful for them. You know, art is subjective, so it almost doesn't matter how you paint. Forgive me for saying that, but it's 90% about the person and the journey, bro. Like the creativity of art. I mean, the business part is a whole nother thing, but like the podcast,
Interesting.
greatest thing it's taught me, I guess, is, you know, to use ego as a tool. I try now to just check that ego 100%, unless I get myself into a corner, you know, then I pull it back out in a different way. But
Get myself in a corner.
yeah, so
Okay. So I want to ask you then, I was going to ask you, you know, like if you had to say, God forbid, something happened,
Yeah.
and you had to start over from scratch.
Yeah.
You know, all episodes got scrubbed or whatever.
Yeah.
How would you go about it? Like, how would you go about it now if you had to like start from ground zero, 0 subscribers?
If I had to start from ground zero, 0 subscribers, first off, I feel like I got to thank everybody that streams the podcast, that listens, that's been along for this journey. Definitely appreciate it. I didn't expect it to do what it does now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the audience is wild, bro. This thing's less than a year old, or it's about a year and a couple months old, and we're a couple thousand away from 20,000 streams.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been wild. What I would change differently is the preparation into the product itself.
Okay.
I would take a step back. I'd probably write it out. Podcast in the center. What's the preparation needed for this product?
Okay.
What's the plan of attack for this, brand? Like, what are we doing here?
Okay.
I'd been tiptoeing through it like blindly, just kind of going with the flow.
Okay.
But if I could have prep, I felt like I'd be further faster. Again, checking the ego and utilizing the tools around me. Mario Lopez has, in the We Are Sacramento podcast, the whole crew, Miles, Marty, and Mario all have 3 years into podcasting.
Yeah.
What I should have did was sat down with them, asked politely for a meeting, sat down with them and said, what do I need to know about podcasting?
Yeah.
And just have that brainstorm conversation with them.
Okay.
Then, based on the information they gave me, sit down with Mario and be like, what do I need to know about the art of conversation?
Yeah.
Like, I would utilize the tools that I have available better in preparation.
Okay.
And everything after that, bro, will just fall into place. Like,
Okay.
There's a bunch of books I've been reading. One of the quotes that have stuck with me is, you fail to your highest level of preparation. And so, like,
Okay.
that shit's key now. Like, that's what I would do differently.
That makes sense. That's what's up. So now, listening to Gabriel speak, you can sense a stoicism about him. He doesn't tell his story from a place of pity, but with a stark indifference. His story is just that, his story, but he doesn't let that define who he is today. He accepts the struggles of his past, and now, with the helpful nudge from Mario, uses them as tools to pave the way to his success, along with his knowledge he has gained from his other mentors. He used his Graf connections as a way to get guests on the podcast, and repurposed his wheeling and dealing skills as a way to negotiate himself into the art world. We can't change yesterday, but we can navigate where we go tomorrow. This is the spirit that drives Gabriel and allows him to be in the rooms with the right people, and more importantly, with the right attitude. Let's continue to listen as he talks about how he finds his version of balance through prioritizing. I want to go into, this is the part of the podcast, I guess, where we go into what I call like the balance of it. You know, how do you got life, and you got, now you got the podcast, you got your first sponsor, which is a big deal. And that you also doing different things on the side, like, your art shows and your own personal art as well, as far as like actual canvases. Are you still doing canvases, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, like, and we're going to go through this, but like that balance of it, like, because something I also want to point out is like, something I noticed about like learning about you, you've had a lot of mentors. Yeah. And I wanted to like kind of highlight that because, you had your grandpa just showing you Sac, teaching a little Spanish. You had your stepdad kind of, helping you, guiding through that rough patch of your life. You had the homie when you went to, I think it was a charter school. Yeah. Who put you on to like letting you know like you need to learn more about Graf. Yeah. Even when you're like, in your industry, Peter Paul Mary, teaching you more how to love your craft more. Like, I wanted to ask you, like, how do you feel about those mentors in your life? Like how, how I want you to speak about the importance of having those kind of people in your life.
It's extremely important. I think growing up without a biological father for the first few years of my life is the greatest gift I could have, because now everybody's like a little father. Okay. Like, everybody gives knowledge. And I don't treat them as they're my father, but I just see, I see who they are, where they are, and I'm like, I can learn something from here, you know, and I have from everybody that I should have learned more.
Yeah.
You know, I look back and I'm just like, why didn't I learn more? But whatever. They've all been extremely instrumental in getting me to this point. Again, that's the preparation part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they've all put into me. Here's the final product you see at me 35.
Okay.
I'm still being put into. Me and Mario have very long talks about, you know, just this and that. Same thing with the owner of the shop that I work for, Justin, and my other buddy, Bazooka Tooth. He's a business owner himself, but he's just a different person too. I value his opinion and his knowledge. So like, people are extremely important. Now, it's not just men either.
Yeah.
My mother has taught me like a completely hyper level of strength that I've only seen it in one other person, and that's my girlfriend that I have now.
Yeah.
The mother of my children. That's the only other person I've seen that much strength in. Like,
Okay.
to put up with me and my stuff and still be here, takes a strong person.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen that in my mother. I see that in her, and I don't deserve any of these people, but they're here, and I'm fortunate to have them. My grandmother was the same way. You know, she was extremely strong. I saw her. She was like a devoted Catholic, and I seen her pray for everyone that she touched during the day. You know, and that was wild to me. The last time I seen her, actually, before she passed, and I didn't want to ruin this, so I didn't go to her funeral or anything.
Okay.
Last time I seen her, she had given me like, I was driving away in the car, and I had like these 212s in the back of my car that was slap. But I'm leaving grandma's house, so I don't turn them up, right? And I see her, I pause for a second, I look at her, and I'm like, this might be one of the last times I ever seen her, and she crosses me, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, I'm going paint tonight. She gave me her blessing. I'm gonna go hit something crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't value what that was, right? Until like later on, I'm like, yo, she's been saving my ass this whole time in her own way. All these people have.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the mentors, the examples are extremely important. It plays into now, who do I want to be to my children? Do I want to be a graffiti thug dude, or do I want to be somebody successful?
Exactly.
Like, you know what I'm saying? What I want to do. So they're extremely important.
And I wanted to say too, because I want to say that I wouldn't say mentors are like aren't viewed the same, because I think there's people still see the importance of mentors.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people feel like the information they're getting now, especially with the internet, is like they're getting it themselves.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, you know, if you just got that knowledge but you didn't get it from those people, do you feel like it would be still applied the same, or do you feel like a lot of it is that person as well?
No, it's definitely the personal thing, because to me, body language, action speaks way louder than words does. So like, first, all these people in my life showed me things, you know what I'm saying? First, the internet is cool. It's definitely valuable, but if you can't run somebody's name through a network, call and backtrack on them, like in the street, it's just words.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I don't know these people on the internet. Now, there are people that I listen to that are proven to have done things in their lives that make the information they choose to put on the internet extra valuable because they have a track record of performance. So it is extremely valuable. I truly believe now that like the person to person is extremely valuable, but I also believe valuable knowledge from any source is valuable knowledge. You know, like, so I kind of take them both. I do appreciate the in-person stuff way more, because they're taking time out of their lives, bro, to pour into you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's extremely valuable by itself. So
Exactly.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
You know, I just kind of I wanted to highlight that, because I think that was the dopest part about, because I definitely have my own mentors in my life as well. And I, like you said, my dad is technically in my life. He's, you know, I've always had contact, but my dad's never been like here every day type deal. Like, I've had other men step into my life, and like you said, I like how you explained that everybody becomes your dad in that way. You know, everybody becomes your father, because you can learn something from everybody else.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't try to do too many. I don't try to let my own children down too much. Like, you had asked something about balance earlier. I'm completely not balancing things well right now. I don't know if you ever do, bro.
Yeah.
Because how do you maintain the trajectory you're on if you're getting off the trajectory?
Exactly.
I haven't figured that part out yet. I don't know how that goes. I will figure it out. I'll figure out some form of it.
So I want to ask you, because I mean, even though I know you say you don't have, And truthfully, I don't, my truthful answer, I don't think there is a balance.
Yeah.
Which is why I kind of it's about kind of finding your own balance.
Yeah.
In your certain circumstances. So I want to ask you, what are some of the tools or maybe tools that you use, systems that make sure that keep you grounded.
Yeah.
Or keep your head in the place where it needs to be at those given times.
So time management is one of them. Management of myself as an economy, as a producer of things.
Okay.
Learning that I am my own little economy. You know what I'm saying? My time is the most valuable asset I have.
Okay.
In my economy. My home is a sub version of my economy. My own personal economy is my household. You know what I'm saying? So all these things, all of this has been part of the trajectory of personal growth. Now where I'm at is I don't mind being gone from the family if I know that 10% is being put away from the money I'm making while I'm gone.
Nice.
Because when you get into a jam or you get into an issue, I'm done asking for help financially from people. I've done that before. Mm-hmm. As an addict, I won't do that again. I won't show my kids that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I can't ever think of a time in my own head where my father gave up and tapped out, because it's never happened. I've never seen it.
Yeah, exactly.
If I do the same thing in a different system for my children, it'll set them up different.
Okay.
So I'm thinking way more steps ahead. I felt like this same time, maybe last year, I was playing checkers, you know what I'm saying, with everything. This year I'm playing chess.
Okay.
So you naturally evolve into the position.
Okay.
And then when you get there, don't be afraid of it. You just lean into it, bro, and see what happens, And instinct will tell you, I'm spending too much time over here. People will react and you'll see what's going on. But I truly believe that I have to see them kids. I have to experience the family at least once a day,
Okay.
On the weekends. I do that a little more in depth, but I've done all this art stuff and this podcast stuff with a full-time job, working 50 hours a week.
Oh, wow.
So time management is the new thing for me that's at the forefront of a lot of things that I do. After this, I have another meeting with somebody else coming here, and then after that, I have a podcast recording.
Nice.
And then the rest of the day from 1 till whenever is for the wife and the kids.
Nice.
See what happens. Tomorrow, I have 4 or 5 hours in the morning that I have for the family. I'm going to take them out to breakfast, and just by 11, I'll be at the space, at the medium, so we could start setting up for the show.
Okay.
I'll be out of there by 7. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So time management, sticking to my system and my process is one of the ways I try to implement balance. The problem is, I'm kind of drowning in opportunity here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on, and they all play a part in the overall picture, bigger picture, but it feels a little bit overwhelming at this point. So I kind of just slow down a little bit. We're coming to the end of some of those things playing all the way out,
okay,
which is cool. There'll be some relief, but there's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. So these tools become more important every day.
Wow.
So
I wanted to go, I won't hold you up too much longer. I want to go a little bit into that economy thing you said.
Yeah.
That you're your own personal economy. What is that? Where'd you get it from? And, can you explain? I think you explained it pretty well,
Yeah.
but just,
All right.
I think that's an interesting point.
No, yeah, and I kind of made that up a little bit.
I like that though.
When I started hearing about, we're going into another recession, and there would be the Great Recession of '08, all these loaded words from the media, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, yo, the media is all about misinformation. So whatever they're talking about is 10 times bigger than what it actually is. Mm-hmm. Let me talk to somebody that has a bigger worldview of what's going on,
okay,
who's been through the entrepreneurship during these ups and downs.
Okay.
I need more information.
Yeah.
The most important thing before you fight something is information.
Okay.
Information allows you to prepare yourself, and that preparation leads to you winning or failing.
Okay.
So with all these keywords and all this fear roaming around, I call Mario Lopez. Boom. What the fuck does recession mean for me at this age and what I'm doing? And like I said, reading people, being good at conversation, he goes, are you eating steaks every night? And I go, no, I can't afford that. He goes, are you going to buy a new car anytime soon? I'm like, no, I own my car, no car note. And he's like, are you going to make a huge purchase anytime soon? And I'm like, no, I'm I'm stable where I'm at. And he goes, then don't worry. Are you going to stop hustling? And I'm like, fuck no, I'm just getting started. He's like, then don't worry about a recession. Doesn't matter, bro.
Yeah.
Like, put it into perspective very easily. He's like, the economy overall will do what it's going to do regardless of what's going on.
Exactly.
Like, you have very little control of that.
Mm-hmm.
So just focus on what you can control. And I compartmentalize all that information into 2 keywords, right? Or 3, my personal economy, like me. And so I just started looking at it like that. One of the things I also am into is like war tactics and like just strategy.
Okay.
I love listening to the stories of General Patton crossing, the European theater in World War II.
Oh, wow.
The USS Enterprise going through the Pacific battle by itself, what it took to do that, the men, the material, the time, how it all played out, examining the timeline and the system, right? Like, it's very fascinating to me. So I started doing that inwardly. Like, what's my timeline? What's my system? What am I doing to combat these issues? Like, what's going on? And like, it also allows you to cut a bunch of bullshit out, a bunch of fat. Like, if you got things that need to get done, I need to do this, I need to do that, really make some of these decisions easy. Like, I don't go out to clubs, I don't hang out, I don't have a very big social life outside of this move getting to the next 3 moves.
Okay.
Like, the time with the family is the only time that I have to just take a couple deep breaths and just chill.
That's what's
Painting
up.
cars is super easy for me. Like, it's just robotic outside of matching colors.
Okay.
That can be tricky. But again, at the shop, we do a great job of nailing everything. So it's just about doing the work. But yeah, just learning or talking to myself as my own personal system.
Okay.
How am I going to manage this? Every little part of it. How's it going to benefit me? What's got to go away in order for it to benefit me? Like,
Okay, dope.
sometimes that's uncomfortable. Some of those things that go away are probably people. So
That's what's up. I think that's a pretty good point to end it on right there. I was going to say, 1, tell people what you got going on, where to find you at, different things that you're doing, getting ready to do. And the platform's yours now.
Okay, so again, my name's Gabriel Lopez. I'm the host of Have a Dope Day. Streaming on all platforms, just Have a Dope Day. Spotify, Apple, all that. You can catch me on Instagram at Have a Dope Day 916, or my personal artist page, which I also promote the podcast on, is GS Ultimatic, ULTIMATIC. And I appreciate you for the interview. And thank you for Old Soul for letting us do this. It definitely got loud in here.
Definitely got a little bit loud in here, but hopefully it didn't get picked up too bad in these mics. But I mean, that's what I kind of like about being here. I like the busyness.
Yeah, it is.
Like it kind of reminds me
It's
more of real
definitely
life.
different. Like a coffee shop conversation.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So appreciate you, Gabriel. It was a good time. I enjoyed it.
Oh, let me give one more shout out before I go.
Go ahead, shout them out.
Big ups to Miles, Marty and Mario from the We Are Sacramento crew, producing my podcast, putting in all the work that they did the years before. They also produce podcasts. So if you're, thinking about doing something like that, or you want to up your game already, they're totally available for that. You can reach them at We Are Sacramento on Instagram. And shout out to the Ultimate Collision Center for covering the bill for the podcast. And just, I have shows coming up this year. I don't know when this will air, but tomorrow I'll actually be throwing a show called Vandals on Canvas with the Medium Tattoo and Gallery over on Freeport. So there's a lot of movement.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate you for having me on the platform. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you guys for listening to this episode with the super dope GS Ultimatic. I hope you learned something new about Graf, because I know I did. To find out more about the show and find other episodes like this, check out wuziapparel.com/pod, or you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to your podcasts. If you're watching the video version, do me a favor, like this video and subscribe for more content. To my audio listeners, if you enjoyed the episode, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps a lot. This is Najara, better known as Wuzi, and thank you for listening to the Creative Balance Show presented by Wuzi Apparel.